Welcome to another episode of Target Up Tuesday. Our last video we talked about concealed carrying versus open carrying, some of the pros and cons. Today what we want to talk about are your different options that are available should you decide to conceal carry. So this by no means is going to be an exhaustive list of all the options that are out there and all the different brands and styles and everything, and that list can go on forever. Instead, we're just going to kind of showcase the holsters that we have and the methods and the ways that we've carried that we come to trust and be comfortable with. But before we get into that, there's sort of some criteria that you want to think about and some rules you kind of want to follow when you're going to select a holster. So Brent, what are some of the things you want to keep in mind when you're going to pick out a holster?
Alright, so we're going to list off three major things that are vital and that are honestly a make or break on whether you should purchase or wear a holster or not. The first one that we feel that is a make or break is whether or not it covers and protects the trigger guard, so that when the gun is secured in the holster, that right here where the trigger guard is, that there's no way that from the outside forces that I could reach it, or even as I draw and pull it out of the holster, that my finger can't move into the trigger guard or accidentally pull the trigger, meaning that as you draw, you might fire the gun, or when you try to put it back in, again, that could potentially happen. So need to make sure that the trigger guard is completely covered. That's why we feel that you need a holster and that you don't just keep your gun in your pocket. The pocket does not offer that option of covering the trigger guard. Second one is retention, meaning that we don't want the holster or the gun inside the holster to move around. When you have it secured wherever you carry it, on your hip or any other place on your body, that it is going to stay solid, whether or not you're running, jumping, getting in and out of the car, bending over, any type of daily activities, it's not going to move. One, so that it is always where you expect it to be, and for safety, it's always right there when you draw, wherever you've practiced and trained for that gun to be when you draw, it'll be there for that muscle memory. Also, just a level of comfort. If a heavy gun or a holster type of material is moving around on your body throughout the day, that's going to be irritating, might prevent you from not wanting to carry. So it's important that it is secure. Then the third and final thing that we want to consider when you're using a concealed carry holster is that you can draw and then also place it back with one hand, because you need to be able to function even if your other arm is injured. If it is actively doing something else, creating distance, moving a car door or something, it allows you that freedom. And also, if you need to move a concealed garment and clear where your gun is, you need that hand free to draw or place it back. So we feel those are the three major things that you need to consider. And like I said, it kind of can be a make or break on whether you pick one holster or not. Mike, obviously that doesn't cover everything. There's going to be other things that you consider, and there's, all of these holsters for the most part cover all of those things. What are some other things that you consider when choosing your own holster?
Well, you definitely want to make sure that your holster is comfortable and also concealable. Comfortable because if you go through the trouble of going and picking out a nice holster and spending the money on the holster, if it's not comfortable, you're probably not going to want to wear it every day. And that kind of defeats the purpose of buying the holster in the first place. And also you want it to be concealable. Remember, concealed carry means concealed carry, right? We don't want people knowing that we're carrying a firearm on us if we're concealed carrying. So if you go out and buy a huge lunky holster and you put it on and there's pretty obviously a huge lump on your side sticking out like that, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of concealed carrying. Second thing is you also want to make sure that the gun, wherever you wear it, it's accessible to you when you need it, right? So for example, if I had a bad back or something, I might not want to wear an ankle holster, which would require me to bend forward to draw my firearm if I needed it. Same thing if I had a bad shoulder, I wouldn't want to carry in a 6 o'clock position where I'd have to reach behind me to access my firearm, causing injury to my arm or causing pain. And the last thing, and one of the biggest things, is no matter what holster you decide to go with, always check and maintain your equipment. I've seen and heard a lot of stories and articles lately about people using leather holsters and the leather getting worn out to the point where it's actually kind of folding or wilting in. And what happens is when the carrier goes to reholster their firearm, that piece of leather actually gets caught in the trigger guard, and when they depress it down into the holster, it actually causes the firearm to go off. And we obviously don't want that happening. And a couple of those articles were accompanied with some pretty gruesome pictures of the aftermath of that. So we definitely want to make sure that we check and maintain our equipment. And also on the same page, that same thing can happen if you use a sort of elastic type of holster. You know, this elastic can bend forward and get caught and wedged into that trigger guard, and we definitely don't want that happening. So for that reason, Brant and I decided to go with a more modern material, a harder Kydex, which you can see this is not going to wilt or change form or anything just through normal wear and tear. However, extreme heat or a hard impact, if you're in a car accident or something, could cause that Kydex to deform. So still, no matter what type of holster you use, really make sure that you regularly check it and regularly maintain it. So I think that kind of covers all the considerations that you need to take into account when selecting a holster. So let's get into the different types of brands and styles of holsters. So what do you got over there?
All right, so this is a Crossbreed Super Tuck concealed carry holster. This is actually I guess you'd call it the make and model of holster that Mike and I both use. Mike came upon Crossbreed first and loved it, and then basically kind of sold me on it and convinced me to it's better than any other holster that I've ever used. The advantages to it are that it forms to your body. With having the leather, as you can see here, it does form to the body, and it has the Kydex that is formed specifically to your firearm. And I use it and wear it on my hip, which is often referred to as a 3 o'clock hold. It fits right there, and I found that for my body shape and my frame, that it is basically the best option for me for concealed carry. I have experimented with Appendix, 5 and 6 o'clock, and actually, and even sometimes under the arm, under the cross draw. But the 3 o'clock for me was the most natural for drawing. Even since I was a little kid, playing cops and robbers and carrying a gun on my hip, that is just naturally where my hand goes to. And after years and years of practice, that's where I feel most natural drawing from. Also, I felt that I'm still able to maintain it and keep it concealed, whether it is under a piece of clothing or with my arm, adding a little bit more concealment naturally when it is, by my side. So that's how I carry it, and that's the holster that I use with my Steyr M9A1. Mike, you also use the Crossbreed, but you carry a different gun and you place it in a different place. What are the slight differences, and then why are we not identical on that?
Well, we are identical on the choice of holster that we use. I also use the Crossbreed Super Tuck. I've always used the Crossbreed Super Tuck ever since I started concealed carrying. I started out with my Springfield XDS, the 45. I actually used the Crossbreed Mini Tuck for that one. And then I switched over to a 9mm and went with the Springfield XD9 subcompact, the Mod Point 2. Stuck with the Crossbreed Super Tuck, loved it, and when I switched over to my Glock, I still carry with the Crossbreed Super Tuck. I just absolutely love this holster. Super comfortable, almost to the point where I think you'd agree, you almost sometimes forget that you have it on.
Honestly, yeah. In a good way.
Yes, yeah, and it's actually more uncomfortable for me to not have it on right now. I feel like something's missing. But the way I carry it is slightly different. I carry it a little bit more what's called a 4 o'clock carry. Reason being, and then I also have a slightly forward cant on it too. The reason I do this is because just my body frame and the way that I'm built is that if I carry on the 3 o'clock on my hip, it just bulges out way too much. It just looks unnatural for my body type. and you can just tell that there's a lump on my side. So I defeated that just by slightly moving the holster back a little bit and canting it forward. The forward cant allows me to still have almost the same kind of draw reach as a 3 o'clock carry, slightly further back, but it works for me. It's a comfortable position for me. I'm still able to easily access it when I need it, and really can't speak highly enough of this holster. Reasonably priced, and then another nice thing about Kydex, not only with the Crossbreed, but pretty much all Kydex holsters, you have the ability to adjust the retention on it too. So if the gun was a little too loose when you first get the Kydex, all you got to do is heat up the Kydex a little bit, mold it a little into your firearm, and it'll tighten up that retention on it. So really nice holster. So I mentioned that I've always carried Crossbreed with my different changes of guns. I know you didn't always carry Crossbreed and didn't always carry Steyr. So what were your configurations before you went to Crossbreed?
Yeah. Like many people, I went through the evolution of trying to experiment with different holsters, getting different recommendations from different people, and then kind of branching out on my own and going through a progression of being unhappy with a lot of holsters. I first started off carrying the H&K USP 45, which is a large gun to conceal carry, and with that I used a universal holster that had the elastic retention and trigger guard, which again, it doesn't offer that same security, something that I was often frustrated with and sometimes even unsure about. And then also when I would go to to place it back, the elastic would catch the slide and often, slightly pull it back, and it would require two hands to place. So right off the bat, there's two of the things that we mentioned that are vital that it did not cover and did not offer. So another thing with carrying the larger gun, the large frame and 45 caliber, I felt uncomfortable carrying it unless I had a hoodie or a large jacket to kind of help with that concealment. And you can't pick or choose when something's going to happen. And if you want to conceal carry, you want to be able to carry all times, no matter what your clothing, what the weather type. Also, you don't want to clue in and indicate that today you're concealed carrying because you're wearing a hoodie when everyone else isn't wearing shorts and t-shirts. So that led to going kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. I switched over to a Ruger LC9S, which is a subcompact 9mm single stack. All those things mean that it was a quarter of the size of the other gun, and basically allowed me to conceal it almost anywhere on my body, which was an advantage to it. I carried using a Kydex holster made by Blade Tech. As you can see, it is almost the smallest holster here. It doesn't add a lot to the actual size of the profile of the gun. So that allowed me to carry it appendix, which is in the front, and it goes inside the waistband and allows for a quick draw, and then also it doesn't add any side profile to my body like the 3 o'clock sometimes might. So I did like that option, and it was the only gun that I've, again with my frame and body size, that was the only gun that I've ever been able to comfortably carry appendix. However, it personally got to the point to where the gun was too small for my hands, and that is something that some shooters will notice, was it just wasn't comfortable for me to shoot all day long, and it got to the point where I wanted something kind of in between the very large USP and then the mini LC9S, and that's where I ended up with the Steyr M9A1. So I ended up selling the Ruger to Kim, Mike's fiance, and I know that she did at first use the Blade Tech waist holster, but then evolved to another form of holster. So what was that, Mike?
So, like you said, she did start out with the Blade Tech and was able, when she's wearing jeans with the belt or something, she was able to comfortably carry it using the Blade Tech. However, she doesn't always like to wear jeans with a belt, and sometimes, whether she's wearing her workout clothes or just comfortable clothing, she needed another option. So she bought this neat little holster. It's actually called the Flashbang. And what this does is it actually hooks or connects to the underwire of the bra. So it will actually hook underneath and clip directly to the bra. I can't speak from personal experience of whether it's how comfortable it is or not. She said it did take some getting used to, but she could wear it with relative comfortability, I guess. We'll go with that. she could be relatively comfortable with it while wearing it. So the way that it would work is it would connect to the bra, and then when she would draw, she would actually move her cover garment so her shirt would go up and the gun comes down. So it would actually be drawn by pulling downward. So it's a neat way to kind of defeat the problem that a lot of females have, which is trying to find a comfortable, practical way to carry a firearm that doesn't cause printing. So I know one of the options for females that we get questions about quite often is purse carrying. So what are your thoughts about carrying in a purse?
Right. So, like Mike already touched on, women are concerned about printing, wearing something that doesn't require a belt or doesn't change the shape of their form, whether they're wearing tighter clothing, more form-fitting clothing, or just not something that actually has a belt on it. With the purse or purse holster, and I do want to specify that it needs to be a purse that is actually designed as a holster and not just taking your firearm and putting it in your purse. That immediately, there's no trigger guard there, so that for us eliminates it as a potential option. But there are purse holsters that are designed specifically for that purpose, and they allow you to actually have a specific holster within the purse, often covered with a zipper, to cover the actual opening to the holster. That can be worn on your body. The things you need to consider while doing this is one, I know that almost every woman I've ever known that has used a purse does establish the habit of leaving it and saying, hey, can you wash this for me? Or even stepping away and not even asking anyone to, and being absent-minded and forgetting and leaving it there. If you have your firearm in your purse, you can't afford to do that. One, it's your responsibility to keep it on you. The whole reason that you're going to be concealed carrying is for self-defense, and if you need to cover distance to get back to your purse, it's not going to serve the purpose that you need it to. Also, just the simple fact of adding more money into that purse and something else inside it that could be stolen, and then also the responsibility of having your firearm stolen and potentially being used by someone else that you didn't authorize. So if you do go with a purse holster, you do need to establish a habit of keeping it on your body, keeping it close to you at all times, and doing that. Retention is something that we mentioned that you need to consider with the holster. Same thing with the purse. Purses do swing and move around, and kind of get into a gray area there. With purse holsters, they do offer often, not all of them, but a lot of them do offer thigh clips and a thigh strap, making it almost like a drop thigh holster, to where it places it there and secures it so it doesn't move, and also so that you could train and get used to drawing it from the same place every single time. So when considering that, I would advise that, and that is something that I would say, either the thigh holster, or some of them also have like a belt. I do feel the belt doesn't look as natural. The thigh could be a fashion statement or something that actually is unique to that holster, or that purse holster. I did mention the zipper. One thing you do want to be aware of and consider is the amount of time it takes to unzip and then reach in and draw. None of these holsters have zippers, and that is something that could get caught up, could train with it unzipped, and then in the time that you actually need to use it, you're not used to dealing with that. And then also it's just a delay. With all of these, any type of delay between getting to and accessing your gun could make or break a self-defense situation. So I do feel that they offer an option to women that other holsters don't. I would just say you still have to consider the three vital things that we've mentioned. And so our video unfortunately cut off after filming yesterday. It cut off early, so we want to pick up where we left off there and continue talking about holsters for you. The video cut off right after talking about purses and and the options that those offer as holster design purses. So, other than that, what are some other non-traditional versions of holsters that are out there for everyone?
So we talked a little bit about how females often have trouble with finding a holster that's comfortable for them, but also doesn't print when they're not wearing jeans. Well, sometimes I'm not wearing jeans. I might want to wear sweatpants or my gym shorts and still be able to carry. So one of the options available when carrying or something like that is this belly band. This is made by Crossbreed also. The belly band just simply wraps around your waist and Velcro. And you can see right here, there's another piece of Velcro. And basically, it comes with a modular holster. I haven't gotten mine in yet for my Glock. I had one for my XD subcompact, the Mod Point 2. Worked really well. And basically, you just Velcro it to the outside here, and then you put the shorts or sweatpants on over. And when you tighten the drawstring down, it presses that modular Kydex holster onto the Velcro. And surprisingly, it holds very well. I was a little bit skeptical when I first bought it, just because of the use of Velcro. I didn't think it would work all that well, but it actually really did. So the belly band is one option. Another option that's out there, it doesn't meet our criteria, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it is something that's out there. It's called the sticky holster. So this material actually just kind of sticks in place when it's put between two layers of clothing. Again, it does stick very well. I was also surprised with the sticky holster how well it does stay in place. But unfortunately, this holster is designed that after you draw, in order to reholster, you actually have to remove the holster, open it up, put the gun back in, and then put it back into your waistband or whatever. So unfortunately, you can't do that one-handed, so this doesn't meet our criteria, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it is just another holster that's out on the market there. So I think we've pretty much covered all the holsters here. Do you have anything you wanted to add? Or?
No, the sticky holster is a very similar concept to this.
Right.
Just that one uses elastic. So, like we said, we've got our vital things that we think that you should consider, and that will basically make or break whether or not you buy a holster. It covers the trigger guard, and it does so securely. We've seen a few here that do cover it, but can either be manipulated or pressed in. So you want something that is secure, again, giving you that confidence that your holster is safe. Second one is that it offers that retention, that it doesn't move around. And there are obviously, like we said, different ways around that, whether it's Velcro and elastic, good metal solid clips, or Kydex, and then also the purse option or anything that might have additional straps or clips to keep it firmly in place. And then our final one, that you can use it with one hand. So all of us might be able to do so differently, being able to use a single hand to basically to draw and reholster. But that's what we think you should consider. We do want to hear your comments on what works for you, what you've gone through. I don't know if you found the right one the first time like Mike did, or if you had to go through a progression of multiple guns, multiple holster styles until you found what worked for you. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for waiting that extra day due to our technical difficulties. But thank you for following Target Up.
And also remember, tune in next week for our next edition of Target Up.